Okay, hi all. So we're going to go through the lab processing for benthic macroinvertebrates. This is a stream sample that we collected a few weeks ago from Cub Run. And if you remember, we preserved it in an ethanol solution. And so the first step is to rinse it. And we've got a waste container for the ethanol and a large funnel, and then we're going to be using Sky. This is sort of a two-person operation since I've got such a big bottle. So we'll basically sieve it and rinse all the ethanol off, and then we'll put it into a smaller container. And then got a lot of leaves in here and some debris, so I'm going to just use regular water to rinse this out. So at this point, I'm not really worried about the ethanol, so I'm going to remove that from the mix here, move it out of the way. And then I'm just going to rinse. Remove some of these big leaves, and hopefully that'll get any critters off of them. You can keep the leaves if you like. Maybe I'll keep a couple of them. Get rid of some of the bigger ones. And then we can look at the leaves under the dissecting scope. And so you aren't going to see this kind of leaf matter in the freshwater tidal benthic samples or in the lake benthic samples. You may have a lot of organic debris that's smaller, and you can't really rinse that off or out. And so you end up having to look at the debris for the critters. Put the rest of the sample into this white tray with a little water. Okay, and then we'll take the contents of the tray. I have left some leaves in here, and we'll take a look at them under the dissecting scope, and maybe we can see a few things in here too if they haven't decomposed, and take a look at it. And you can do multiple cycles with the sieve. You can go through and remove some of the water, and so let's go check out what's in here. Hopefully something. Okay, so for benthic macroinvertebrates, we usually have some books available to use for ID, but we also have these ID guides. So they've got one of each, I guess, and then simple ones. So when you see something like this under the dissecting scopes, then you can ID it. So we're basically going to go through a process of counting and IDing. So we start with, I have a couple dissecting scopes here, and so two of us can look at this, and then we put the samples in these little dishes, Petri kind of dishes, and we can use a spoon or tweezers to take things out, and then we'll look at the creatures under the the dissecting scopes and ID them, and normally we sort them into just a regular white ice tray. So you would put all aquatic earthworms in one, etc., clams in another, and then we preserve it in a glycerol solution. And after we've sorted them in this tray, we end up putting them into a small vial with glycerol so that we could go back and verify the counts. So first, let's put some leaf. Get a couple of these clams so we can take a look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Light scope has a little light underneath to help you see things. And then I don't know how well, maybe you can see what the...
There we go. There's the clam. Okay.
So you basically move the tray around. So I've got a couple clams here, so I'm going to put them into here, and I would cover this with glycerol, and then I'm just moving the leaf around and looking all over the leaf to see if there's anything that's stuck on the leaf. A little bit more. And there's a focus you can, similar to the light scopes, but maybe a little bit easier. You can do a coarse and fine focus on dissecting scopes. I'm not really seeing anything on the sleeve. I'm going to remove him from the mix and see if I got anything else. Down inside there. And little bits of plant matter, but I'm not seeing anything in this particular sample. And so basically a group of 4 or 5 students would take a set like this and sieve it a little bit more and then go through every little piece of this sample to ID the critters and to count them. So you would start with this, and then you would move the common critters into sorting bins here in the ice tray, and then you would transfer those into a vial where you can look at them again and recount them. It's better to count them now, and so then you can do an assessment of, in this case, stream health. So that's sort of the essence of the procedure, and I can tell you that this one, because usually our samples are a lot denser than what Stephanie and I collected at the stream a few weeks ago, And so it can take a really long time to go through these samples. We often have to subsample, so we'll only sample or look at half of the sample rather than the entire sample because there'll be a lot in it, and it takes a long time to ID it and count. So you do have to use strategies like that. When you're doing stream research in the field, you often have hundreds of samples, and so you start out with a strategy that allows you to do subsamples on each of those to do an assessment of what the potential density of macroinvertebrates was and the diversity too. So.